Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to explore, well, something that might surprise you, presidential security. Or, or maybe lack thereof. It's all about the bulletproof bubble top. Or was it? You know, the one that was or wasn't used on President Kennedy's limousine.
Right.
We're using Carlton W. Sterling's article, The Bulletproof Bubble Top, published in the Fourth Decade Journal back in '99.
Okay.
So get this, the official record says that the bubble top, well, it wasn't actually bulletproof. Does that even make sense?
It certainly raises some questions, yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you think about the historical context.
I mean, I vividly remember Eisenhower, riding in a motorcade, and there was what looked like a bulletproof shield over his car. Sterling describes it in detail, this dome shape, leaving a gap by the windshield. He even compares it to like a military helmet. The dome shape, deflects impact, creates distance from the target.
Right.
And it could even, be made from some pretty heavy-duty material. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if something like that existed for a president, right?
Not at all. And Sterling brings up a really interesting comparison. The Pope-mobile.
Oh, yeah.
After, the attempt on Pope John Paul II, they introduced a vehicle, right? With bulletproof, see-through sides.
Right.
I mean, so the technology clearly existed back then. And let's not forget, presidential assassinations, they weren't exactly a new thing in 1963.
Right.
Like, just off the top of my head, the shooting of President-elect Roosevelt in '33.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd think that would have been, like a wake-up call, right?
Okay.
About the need for some more robust presidential security.
Yeah, you would think. But then there's the Warren Report, the official investigation into the Kennedy assassination. And they say the bubble top, well, the one in Dallas, that wasn't bulletproof. They say the last armored car was retired in '53. And that presidents, they just preferred open cars. It almost sounds too casual, for something as important as, well, keeping the president safe.
Yeah. I mean, Sterling is skeptical about that explanation, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Especially, when you think about those Secret Service protocols, the ones for potential threats.
Right.
If presidents really did prefer open cars, wouldn't they have adjusted those protocols? It seems like a pretty significant contradiction there.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's more to the story, and things get even more interesting when Sterling brings in a recording of a conversation between President Johnson and FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover just 6 days after the assassination.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That conversation's included in Taking Charge, the Johnson White House tapes, edited by Michael Beschloss. Those tapes really give us some fascinating insights.
Yeah.
Into the immediate reaction to the assassination.
So in this recording, Hoover points out that there were no Secret Service agents on the back of the car in Dallas, even though that was standard procedure. And then he brings up the bubble top, saying it wasn't used and wasn't worth a damn anyway. He goes on to say that it was, well, made entirely of plastic.
But here's the thing. Beschloss claims this bubble top. It was just for, weather protection.
Okay.
But Hoover brings it up.
Yeah.
Right. Right after talking about security lapses, I mean, if it wasn't meant for security, why would he even mention it?
That's a good point. And then there's the design of this, supposed weather shield. Sterling points out that it left the front open, exposing anyone in the front seat to rain. Plus, it kind of messed with the regular convertible top. It almost seems like it was, I don't know, intentionally inconvenient.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't a practical weather solution. And back to that Johnson-Hoover conversation, Hoover advises Johnson to get a bulletproof car.
Right.
Specifically stating that the top has to remain up for it to be effective. Now, Johnson, being the vice president then, he would have known about presidential security procedures, right? So if the bubble top was just, a flimsy weather shield, why didn't he question Hoover? It almost sounds like they both knew more than they were letting on.
It's like they're tiptoeing around something, like a very sensitive subject. And then Hoover throws in this other curious statement, claiming that the Secret Service only armored undercarriages, to protect against bombs, which he says are more prevalent in Europe. But Sterling points out that, well, that statement just doesn't hold up, historically. I mean, bombs have been used for political reasons in the U.S., too, like the Haymarket Square bombing, the Birmingham church bombing just a few months before Kennedy's assassination, and the many civil rights bombings.
Right.
And not to mention Archduke Ferdinand's assassination in 1914, the event that triggered World War I. That was from gunfire, not a bomb.
Right. Yeah.
So why was the Secret Service, so focused on bomb protection under the car, but seemingly like unconcerned about potential gunfire?
Sterling suggests that maybe it was in response to a specific right-wing bomb threat, which could have been a deliberate distraction.
Yeah.
And there is evidence of a decoy explosion at Dealey Plaza.
Right.
So if the Secret Service was focused on a bomb threat, it might explain why they didn't, see the gunfire coming.
That's a really interesting point. Sterling also suggests that that decoy explosion, well, it could have been a tactical maneuver by an ambush team. If the motorcade slowed down, as some eyewitness accounts suggest, it would have made President Kennedy, well, a pretty easy target.
And that brings us to Agent William Greer, the driver of the limousine.
Right.
Given, the bomb threat and the potential for an ambush, his actions, they suddenly take on a new meaning, don't they?
Yeah.
Imagine being in his position. You hear an explosion, you see crowds ahead, and you're worried about another bomb.
Right.
So his decision to slow down, maybe even stop under the railroad bridge, it could have been like a desperate attempt to follow security protocol in a very chaotic situation.
Yeah. Sterling even points to the Zapruder film, where Greer can be seen looking back over his shoulder during the shooting. It's possible that he was, expecting backup from the agents in the following car, just as protocol dictated.
Yeah, it's a detail that's often overlooked. But it really does add another layer of, complexity to Greer's actions.
Right.
He may not have been complicit, like some theories suggest, but rather, trapped in a rapidly deteriorating situation.
And then Sterling brings in another source, Walt Brown's book, Treachery in Dallas.
Oh, wait.
Brown interviewed both Greer and Agent Roy Kellerman, who was in the passenger seat.
Right.
According to Brown, Greer insisted that the car was heavily armored, but useless because, it was a convertible. This completely contradicts Hoover's statement, that the presidential cars weren't armored.
Hold on. There's even more. Brown also reports that that Kellerman told him that both Kenneth O'Donnell, the close Kennedy aide, and Texas Governor John Connally, they were both deeply worried about the bubble top being removed.
Oh, wait. Wasn't O'Donnell the one who, according to the Warren report, ordered the bubble top removed?
Yeah.
I mean, if the bubble top was just a weather shield, why would they be concerned about it?
That's the question, isn't it? The inconsistencies just keep piling up.
And Sterling keeps digging, doesn't he? This is where things, they take a darker turn. He introduces a man, Hank Killam, a former Dallas resident, with connections to Jack Ruby, the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
This is where, I don't know, the story starts to feel like a spy thriller.
Yeah.
Killam. He claimed to have information about the assassination.
Okay.
And he ended up being harassed by federal agents, losing jobs, constantly being questioned. He eventually, fled Dallas. But the harassment continued.
Wow.
Just 2 days before his death, he told his brother, I'm a dead man, but I've run as far as I'm not going to run. It gives you chills just thinking about it.
It does. And a few months after the assassination, he died in Pensacola, Florida, under some very, suspicious circumstances.
Yeah.
Officially, it was ruled a suicide, but the details are, strange to say the least.
Boy.
And they found him dead in a department store, surrounded by broken glass from a window, but only with a deep cut on his throat.
That doesn't sound like a typical suicide to me. I mean, was he really involved, or was someone trying to, silence him?
Sterling quotes a letter written to the FBI years later by someone who knew Killam.
Okay.
And the letter claims that Killam was really disturbed after returning to Pensacola and kept saying things like, they are after me. They're going to kill me because I helped kill President Kennedy.
So he directly admitted to playing a part in the assassination. But why? I mean, why would he say that if it wasn't true?
It's a question that, haunts this case. And there's also a police report that mentions Killam's mother. She was concerned about his, mental state.
Okay.
And he had an appointment with a psychiatrist the day he died. So, I mean, was he paranoid, delusional, or was he, a legitimate threat to the official narrative?
It's hard to know for sure, but the circumstances of his death they certainly raise a lot of questions. The FBI ultimately, well, they dismissed Killam as unreliable, maybe even, psychotic, but it's tough to ignore his story, especially with, the way he died. It's just another piece of this puzzle that doesn't quite fit.
And Sterling uncovers yet another another strange lead. He brings up the Winnipeg airport incident.
The what?
Where a man named Richard Giesbrecht overheard a conversation.
Yeah.
That seemed to be about the Kennedy assassination.
Wait a minute, a conversation in a Canadian airport. What does that have to do with anything?
It seems random, but the things Giesbrecht reported, they're eerily specific.
Oh, okay.
He heard these two men talking about how much Oswald really knew,
and
how much does she know, which likely referred to Marina Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald's widow. They even mentioned someone named Isaacs.
Yeah.
Who was caught on film after the landing.
Wow.
Possibly referring to footage from Love Field in Dallas.
This is getting more and more complex. Are we talking about like a real conspiracy here?
Giesbrecht's lawyer, Harry Backlund, he wrote a detailed letter about this incident to the U.S. consulate in Winnipeg. Just a few days later, he insisted that Giesbrecht was a reliable source and believed his account to be, completely true.
So this wasn't just like gossip then. This guy, he really believed he overheard something important.
Absolutely. The letter, which was marked absolutely personal, describes some really alarming things Giesbrecht heard.
Okay.
The men talked about merchandise coming from Nevada and needing to close shop temporarily. There was even a reference to mercury.
Mercury, what would that even mean in this context? It just adds another layer of like mystery to this whole thing.
It's one of those details that sticks out and makes you wonder, like, what were they really talking about?
Right.
They also mentioned a meeting in Kansas City.
Okay.
Using names like Kellogg and Broadway, and mentioning a place called Townhouse.
Okay. So now we have like
Yeah.
potential code names, a location, and a mysterious reference to mercury. It sounds like they were, trying to cover their tracks.
And there's this chilling statement about this Isaacs needing to be relieved.
Yeah.
And his car destroyed because he got involved with a psycho like Oswald. It's as if they were trying to like distance themselves from Oswald.
Yeah.
And any connection to the assassination.
So did the FBI investigate this? I mean, they had a location, names, and a potential connection to Oswald.
They did. They looked into every lead Giesbrecht provided. They checked out the townhouse in Kansas City, but found nothing scheduled for the date mentioned.
And what about Isaacs and that mercury reference? Did they lead anywhere?
The FBI, they found out that Mercury, Nevada was an atomic testing site. And there was no sign of any businesses closing down there.
It sounds like they hit a dead end. Or did they?
Not quite. The name Isaacs, it actually turned up something interesting.
Okay.
They found a man named Charles R. Isaacs, an American Airlines ticket agent who had been assigned to Dallas. It turns out his wife had made costumes for Jack Ruby's dancers.
Oh, wow.
They even found Isaacs' name in Ruby's notebook.
Wait, are we talking about like the same Jack Ruby who shot Oswald?
The one and only.
Yeah.
Finding this connection to Ruby is huge, especially with all the other details that Giesbrecht overheard.
Right.
It suggests a potential link, right, between Ruby Oswald and this group discussing the assassination.
So what happened with Isaacs? Did he admit to anything?
The FBI, they interviewed both Isaacs and his wife.
Okay.
But they downplayed their connection to Ruby, saying it was just a business deal that went sour, years ago.
Do you believe them? I mean, come on. His name was in Ruby's notebook. There has to be more to it than that.
Sterling points out that the FBI for some reason never asked Isaacs about why his name was in Ruby's notebook.
Huh.
It seems like a pretty crucial detail to overlook, would you say?
Absolutely. If you're investigating a possible connection, why wouldn't you ask about something like that? It's almost like they were, I don't know, deliberately avoiding like certain lines of questioning.
And there's another twist.
Okay.
Sterling, he mentions this book called Oswald Talked that describes illegal gun running operations in Dallas. Just days before the assassination, there was a transfer of stolen weapons from a Dodge to a Thunderbird.
So are we saying like these illegal guns were potentially connected to the assassination?
They seized the Thunderbird, but the Dodge and its driver got away. Sterling suggests that that this driver could have been Isaac's.
Wait, hold on. So we have Isaac's potentially involved in both gun running and connected to Jack Ruby. This is getting way more complicated than I ever imagined.
Remember that conversation Giesrecht overheard?
Yeah.
About a 1958 Dodge that needed to be destroyed.
You're right. That could be the same Dodge. All these pieces, like they seem to fit together. But did anyone ever follow up with Isaacs after those initial interviews? I mean, this feels like such a significant lead.
Unfortunately not. Sterling, he tried to find Isaacs years later, but found out that he was he was living in a care facility with Alzheimer's disease.
So that's a huge disappointment. We were so close to like uncovering something major, and then the trail goes cold.
It happens more often than you'd think, especially in a case as complicated as this one.
Right.
But Sterling's investigation, it doesn't end there.
Okay.
He goes on to explore the Assassination Records Review Board's examination of the Zapruder film.
Okay.
And their work with Eastman Kodak to digitize and enhance the film and the autopsy photos.
So we're shifting gears a bit here. Well, why is he bringing up the Zapruder film now?
Sterling is building a case for a potential cover-up.
Okay.
And that involves, not just conflicting accounts, but also the possibility of manipulated evidence.
Right.
Remember all the controversy surrounding the autopsy photos and the chain of custody?
Oh, yeah.
The review board's work with Kodak was a huge step in addressing those concerns.
I remember the debate about whether the autopsy photos were altered. So the review board was trying to figure out like what was real and what might have been tampered with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They even found previously unseen latent photos on a roll of film that had been, dismissed as unusable.
Wow.
It's amazing what modern technology can uncover, even decades later.
It's incredible to think that we're still finding new evidence related to this case. So what did they find out from these photos?
The review board, they took depositions from key people involved in the autopsy. Like the photographers, the prosectors, even the technician who developed the photos. They were questioned under oath with the original photos present.
Oh, okay.
This was a much more thorough examination of the evidence than was ever possible before.
It's like they were, I don't know, bringing history back to life, trying to like reconstruct the events of that day with new eyes and modern technology.
And they did uncover some important information. For example, Dr. James J. Humes, one of the autopsy prosectors, admitted that he destroyed his notes from the autopsy and the first draft of the report.
Hey, why would he do that? Wouldn't those be like crucial pieces of evidence?
He claimed he wanted to protect the Kennedy family's privacy, but it definitely raises questions about why he would destroy potentially important documents.
Right.
It fuels those suspicions of a cover-up, doesn't it?
It does, especially when you consider the testimony of Sandra Spencer, the technician who developed the photos. She claims to have developed post-mortem photos of President Kennedy that were different from the ones we have in the National Archives.
Different photos. That's a bombshell.
Yeah.
It completely disrupts the chain of custody and suggests that some photos might have been altered, withheld, or even destroyed.
Wow. This just keeps getting more and more like convoluted. It's hard to know what to believe at this point.
It is. And Sterling, he acknowledges the difficulties, of piecing together a complete picture.
Right.
Memories fade, eyewitness accounts can be, unreliable, and sometimes the paper trail just goes cold.
Right.
He cautions us to be skeptical of single statements taken out of context.
Yeah.
And to look at like the overall weight of the evidence.
That's a valuable point. It's easy to get lost in, the speculation and intrigue, but it's important to remember that we're dealing with real people and real events.
And it's a reminder, that the search for truth, and in such a monumental and tragic event, it's rarely simple. But with all this swirling around, I mean, what does Sterling ultimately conclude from his investigation?
Well, he connects it all to the bigger picture, right, of the Kennedy presidency. Remember, this was the Cold War era,
right,
a time of intense anxiety and ideological clashes, right?
Yeah.
Kennedy was a president who challenged the established order in many ways, from his stance on civil rights to his efforts to de-escalate, the nuclear arms race with the Soviet Union.
Sterling argues that Kennedy's attempts to control the military-industrial complex,
right,
that network of military and defense contractors, and his skepticism towards the CIA's covert operations. Well, it made him, a threat to some powerful forces, within the government.
So are you saying that, is Sterling suggesting that Kennedy's assassination was an inside job, that elements within his own government might have wanted him, out of the picture?
He doesn't shy away from that possibility.
Yeah.
He even brings up historical parallels, like the death of James V. Forrestal, the first U.S. Secretary of Defense. Forrestal, he clashed with the military establishment and was ultimately, driven to suicide. These examples, they really illustrate, the very real dangers that Kennedy faced, as he challenged those power structures of the Cold War.
That's a scary thought, isn't it? That a president could be taken out, not by a foreign enemy, but by people within his own country. But if Sterling's right and there was a cover up, what would be the motive? I mean, why go to such lengths to hide the truth?
Sterling believes that the motive was to protect the national security state itself. Imagine the impact. If it came out that the assassination was, orchestrated or supported by elements within the U.S. government, it would have, shattered public trust and undermined the entire narrative of the Cold War.
He even suggests that this cover-up has continued, right, for decades, with the media and official institutions downplaying or dismissing, any evidence that contradicts the lone gunman theory.
He even suggests that some of the alternative theories we hear, like the idea that Fidel Castro was behind it. They were purposely spread, to divert attention from the possibility of internal involvement.
So after all this, after this deep dive, I mean, where do we stand? What should we take away from Sterling's exploration of the bulletproof bubble top?
The biggest takeaway for me is it's the importance of continuous critical thinking.
Yeah.
And healthy skepticism.
Especially
when it comes to official accounts.
Right.
I mean, Sterling's research, it shows that, history is seldom as clear-cut as it appears.
Right.
Power structures, they will go to great lengths to protect themselves. and we need to be aware of that.
It's like you said earlier, the search for truth, it's an ongoing process. We should always be willing to question assumptions and challenge authority, even when it comes to events as significant and tragic as the Kennedy assassination.
Sterling, he concludes that the pre-assassination existence of the bubble top, combined with Johnson and Hoover's cryptic conversations, the questionable deaths of potential witnesses like Hank Killam, and the inconsistencies in the Winnipeg airport incident all suggest a cover-up of massive proportions,
and the potential motive to safeguard the interests of the national security state, even if it means sacrificing truth and justice.
It's a sobering thought that stays with you long after you finish reading. If Sterling's analysis intrigues you, I highly recommend seeking out his article in the Fourth Decade Journal. It's a deep dive that will make you reevaluate your assumptions and question everything you thought you knew about one of the most pivotal moments in American history.
And who knows, maybe you'll discover some new insights of your own. That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. They remind us that history is full of unanswered questions and encourage us to keep exploring, keep questioning,
keep diving deeper.